I didn't plan to be here. Not doing this, not in this exact season, not with this path, not with all the things going on in my life, but God had something better than what I imagined. Maybe you're in a season that feels like a detour. Maybe it feels like you've missed your chance or you've messed it up. I've been there too, and I want to share with you today the hard truth and the beautiful reality of letting go of the life you thought you wanted to make room for the one that God has prepared. This video is about hope and surrender and what happens when you stop gripping your plans and start trusting God with your next step. Hi, I'm Emily. I'm a bold life coach and business mentor, and I help women build purpose-driven lives and businesses, but more importantly, I help them trust God with the parts of their story that feel out of order. So today's episode is personal. Make sure to hit subscribe. I cannot wait to connect with you, and let's get into it. We are talking about surrendering our plans. It's about learning how to let go of thought you really wanted so that you can step into what God actually called you to. Because sometimes the thing that you're calling failure is really just the foundation, and your delay, it might be his perfect design. In my 20s, I had a very clear idea of what I wanted my life to look like, my career milestones, financial goals, the picture perfect family rhythm, and maybe you can relate to that. I had to-do lists and plans on top of plans. I thought if I prayed enough and worked enough, I could architect my future. But what nobody prepared me for was the reality of divine redirection. And I had a wild awakening when I was living my corporate life, thought I had the career of my dreams, had asked God specifically for it, and found myself crying every day and getting physically ill every Sunday, knowing I had a week ahead of that nonsense. I walked through closed doors that I begged God to open. I saw dreams dissolve one after another. I experienced seasons of uncertainty where the silence was deafening. And for a long time, I thought maybe I had done something wrong, or that maybe I had misheard God, or worse, that God had forgotten about me. But scripture never promises that walking with God means ease. John 16:33 says, "In this world you have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." God never guarantees our plan, but he always fulfills his purposes. And even when the path doesn't look like what you expected, that doesn't mean that he's not directing it. And I found that my peace laid in that truth alone. Through all of my struggle, through all of my trying to find myself and going through this early life crisis, I knew that God was going to fulfill his purpose through my life. And that gave me so much peace. Think about Joseph in Genesis 37 through 50. The story of Joseph is amazing. God gave him a dream, but everything that followed looked like the opposite of a dream, okay? It looked like a living nightmare. And I think the fact that he was merely separated from everyone who loved him, everyone who cared for him, and he was walking that path alone on top of it. But God was there with him, and God kept reassuring him and kept giving him hope and kept giving him the vision for what his future would be. And he had trust in that, and that kept him from going insane. He was sold into slavery, betrayed, wrongfully imprisoned. His life looked nothing like a promise, but every setback was a preparation. Genesis 50:20 says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." And that always brings me to tears, because think about all he had to walk through, and he literally rested in God, and he knew that through all of that, this was the point of it, and it was worth it. It was worth it to him. So even after encountering God at the burning bush, Moses doubted his ability. He didn't feel ready or equipped, and yet God chose him to lead a nation out of slavery. Or Ruth, her whole life shattered in loss and relocation, but her obedience led her to Boaz and the lineage of Jesus himself. When things feel like they're falling apart, that might be the moment that God is putting the real story together. We don't need to understand the blueprint. We just need to be walking in his will. We live in a broken world. Disappointment, delay, detours, they're not signs of failure. They're part of endurance. James 1:2-4 says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Endurance is the unspoken miracle of faith. It is not glamorous, it doesn't always trend, but it makes you unshakable. It gives you that peace that passes understanding. It's like when you meet the person who's going through something that would be your living nightmare, and you're wondering, how are are they facing this? How can they still be chipper? How can they still be pouring into others when they're going through such an adversity? I remember walking through postpartum depression, wondering why God felt so silent, but it was in that silence that he restructured more of my foundation in him. He grew my roots deeper than I ever would have chosen. And now I know that the season wasn't punishment, it was preparing me, and it was helping me lean to God more and surrender my plans for his. The life I live now is not what I wrote in my journal 10 years ago, but it's exactly where God wanted me to be. Proverbs 19:21 says, "Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails." There were dreams I had to grieve, doors I had to accept that would not open. But what came instead was better than what I would have chosen. As I prayed through the broken pieces of the plans that I clung to, I began to notice that God was slowly revealing something new, something more aligned with my heart, with the gifts that he gave me, with the things that I'm naturally passionate about, and my calling to serve. That's when I quit my corporate job. I let go of my ambition. I had to let go of my expectations of what I deemed successful. And that was okay, because it wasn't on a whim I made this choice, but with quiet confidence that God was shifting me into a new season and to humble my heart in a way that I could accept that. I invested in coaching. I got certified in life coaching. Nervous but convicted, I took steps in faith. I started a podcast in a season that didn't feel ideal, but it became a vessel for my voice. I built a business that allowed me to be present as a mom, a consistent creative, and a faith-driven entrepreneur. And it wasn't always clean, and I had to pivot a lot. That I went through a major season of burnout, silent launches, mini wins, and big breakthroughs, and God was a part of all of it. I wouldn't have built a business rooted in ministry had I not focused on God first. I wouldn't have created a coaching program that leads women to trust in God's plan for their life. I wouldn't have traded speed for stillness or success for surrender. But he would, and he did. And he rewrote a story in a way that I didn't see coming. And I'm so glad and so thankful that he did. So if you're in the middle of this type of tension, please hear me. Your peace isn't in forcing the plan. It's in trusting the one who sees the entire picture. So if you're in that tension between what you wanted and what is, this is your reminder that you're not behind, you're not being punished, you're being invited into something deeper. And if you need a community, which I'm here to tell you, all of us need community for that in between, then I want to encourage you to join the Bold Life Collective. It's where we talk about the real stuff, faith, calling, motherhood, living life presently and aware, and all the moments where God asks for our surrender and meeting us with his better. So I want to make sure that you get into our community group. Click the link below to join that, and make sure that you subscribe so you can be here for our next podcast episode. Click the link below to join us. Drop "his plan is greater than my plan" in the comments if this spoke to you today. And you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to simply say, yes, I'm ready to take action, to take ownership of the change in my life, because faith is action. Faith is not sitting idle. Faith is not waiting for God to strike you with a lightning bolt. Faith is trusting in his plan over your own, setting aside your expectations for his, and leaning into his will for your life. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to take the next right step. I hope you feel inspired by this and that you will continue to focus on your journey, take steps, and lean into him. I'll talk to you soon. Catch this next video if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're listening to the podcast, you can now text us any questions that you have, any subjects that you want to talk about. I would love to be able to identify what it is you're struggling with and talk to you on the next episode. So be sure to do that as well. I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.